Okay. So, when was the last time you made a decision that was truly yours? Not your parents', not society's, yours. We're trained to think of life as a test. Multiple choice, one right answer, A, B, C, or D. We study hard, memorize all the formulas, eliminate the obvious wrong ones, and pick the best remaining option. If you're lucky, you end up with a stable job, a mortgage, maybe even a golden retriever named Lucky. But here's the thing. Life isn't a test with right answers. The real test isn't on paper. It's in our heads. It's the fear of choosing differently. The fear of not being at the table if you don't pick the acceptable answer. We live under invisible instructions. The belief that good girls don't quit high-paying jobs, that elite degree should lead to elite careers, that your resume should move up, never sideways, and certainly not backwards. But what if those beliefs aren't true? What if they're just inherited answer sheets, copied forward, unquestioned? Growing up, I thought failure looked like not being chosen. But real failure? It's outsourcing your life's decisions to someone else's expectation and calling that stability. And I knew all of this in theory, but knowing is one thing. Having your life cracked open and being forced to choose for yourself is another. Before I lost my job, I was the rising star. Top university, impactful career, a Mission Impossible workout routine I used to brag about online. I flew to conferences, gave speeches on the urgency of climate change and the importance of adaptation. I helped shape policies that would affect people all over the world. But honestly, I was so busy saving the world, I couldn't even keep my basil plant alive. And that was the problem. I didn't see the result of my work. I couldn't interact with the people those policies were supposed to help. And around the same time, I have found an immense passion for cooking. Seeing raw produce transform into dishes, and seeing my friends' reactions, I have finally gotten the feedback I've been craving. And I assumed I can live like this forever. I wasn't happy. I really didn't have a reason to complain. Inside, I was exhausted by the performance. Always polished, always on. Yes, I love the spotlight. I love the praises. I listen to every piece of advice so that I can keep the standard living. But one voice was missing. Mine. I can't remember the last time I had asked myself what I wanted. My life was dictated by the preference of everyone else. I listened to my parents, who thought stability as the only form of love. I listened to colleagues who measured worth by titles, promotions, and LinkedIn updates. I listened to friends who said, "You're so lucky, you're living the dream." I even listened to society at large, the invisible rule book that insists success only counts if it looks good on a resume. every voice had a say in my life, except mine. So when I was told my contract couldn't get renewed, I felt a flicker of relief. A small, rebellious, yes! Like someone had finally broken the glass and handed me a way out of the loop. But right alongside that flicker came a wave of panic. Relief and fear colliding at once. 1 second I thought, maybe this is my chance. And the next, maybe this is the start of a very slow but very public collapse. But what now? What if no one hires me again? What if I never find another seat at the table? And the dark voices whispered, what if you were never meant to be at the table at all? What if all along you were just a guest, and now they've quietly taken your chair away? What if this isn't the start of something new, but the kind that simmers like a slow stew, heat rising so gradually that you don't even notice until it's already boiling over? The kind that everyone watches in silence, thinking, so that's what happens when you step off track. Then I remember something my mentor once said. Now that you're part of the workforce, you only get to choose for yourself between jobs. The rest of the time, you'll be too busy surviving. And suddenly, that in-between felt like an opportunity, a blank answer bubble with my name on it. What would I want to learn? Just for me. Upgrade my diving license? Do yoga 8 hours a day? Or radically level up my cooking game? You know my answer. But I didn't have a strong preference at that time. I just knew that, strangely, I was thrilled to finally be unemployed. And when I told my friends that all the options, and the fact that I might go to cooking school, their reaction was suspiciously enthusiastic. Like, finally, levels of enthusiasm. Honestly, a bit offensive. So I enrolled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of clarity. Cooking wasn't just a skill. It was a space where I could make decisions again. Not for a boss, not for a CV, just taste, texture, timing. Which is how, at age 32, I found myself walking into Lanxiang Vocational School. Yes, that Lanxiang. 要学技术内加强，中国山东找蓝翔. At this point, I had a master from Tsinghua. I advised on climate finance, trying to predict how infrastructure might stand against climate change 50 years from now. And yet, there I was, in a white uniform, gripping a greasy wok, trying to keep up with an 18-year-old who chopped faster than I could think. Meanwhile, as my former colleagues were updating LinkedIn with words like impact-driven, transformational leadership, I was searching, what's the difference between light and dark soy sauce? And as you can probably imagine, my network buzzed. My relatives called my mom. The internet panicked. 40 million views, journalists chasing me down, People couldn't decide if it was performance art or a breakdown. And under all that noise, I carried one fear. What would people think of me? A 30-plus, single, unemployed Chinese woman, a Tsinghua degree now standing in the kitchen of a vocational school better known for its ads than its prestige. Every chop of the knife, every stir of the wok. I wondered if I had just downgraded my entire life into a punchline. At night, I sat in a heatless studio, wrist aching from a too heavy pan, massaging away the soreness and the loneliness. I was cold, tired, alone. But I also felt something I hadn't felt in years. Passion, flavor, life. I began sharing online what I was cooking, what I was learning, what I was thinking. And to my surprise, the more I shared, the more I understood myself. But the real turning point wasn't online. It was during Chinese New Year. As I walked in, bracing myself for the dreaded question every unemployed or unmarried Chinese woman knows too well. When will you marry? What's happening to your career? And what are you doing with your degree? But instead, all my relatives wanted to talk about was, how do you make the perfect stew? How do you time for fish? And then I realized I had been terrified of losing faith. But the reality, I have finally found a voice. And then it struck me. Life is far more resilient than we think. We live as if one wrong decision will make or ruin your life. But the reality, there isn't a single decision that can ruin your life or make your life. Not even Tsinghua to Lanxiang. And by me going to Lanxiang, I hadn't just written my own answer. I made space for others to consider theirs. And I know I'm not alone. According to data from the United States Department of Labor, 83% of US workers suffer from work-related stress. While in China, among Gen Z aged 18 to 25, only 32.44% believe their work matches their interests. We're not confused, we're constrained. We don't lack ambition. We just fear picking the wrong answer, as if deviation's more dangerous than discontent. So, what if life is still a multiple choice? But instead of A, B, C, or D, there's option E, the blank one, the one that makes your finger tick when you pick it, because it's not on the official sheet, but it's yours. And you don't need to explain it to your boss, your uncle, or the friend whose career just looks shinier on LinkedIn. You just need to know it matters to you. So I want to ask you again. Are you choosing what you really want, or just what feels acceptable? If you had no fear and no one to impress, would your choice look the same? Life isn't a test. It's a story. And the best stories don't follow a formula. They surprise us. So choose boldly. Option E, none of the above. The one they told you not to pick. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to write your own question. Thank you.